Welcome to the Australian National University's College of Asia and the Pacific in Canberra. My name is Nicholas Farrelly and I'm a research fellow here in the college whose work focuses on politics in mainland Southeast Asia. Today I'm standing in front of this most exquisite map of the Asian region. We all know the big countries, China and India. Of course, Asia also has some quite small countries, places like Bhutan and Laos. In my own work, I focus on some of the medium-sized countries of this region, most particularly Thailand and Myanmar. Today, my plan is to take you on a brief journey in an effort to understand the new political geography which is emerging in Myanmar. Myanmar is a country which was run for many years by a military dictatorship. That dictatorship has opted in more recent times to try and transform itself into a democratic system where at least a level of popular participation in politics has become possible. The centre for this new effort is Naypyidaw, the capital of the new Myanmar. Naypyidaw is the place from which the former military dictators of the country have decided that they will try and rule a new political geography. And perhaps the best way of trying to get to grips with that is to understand this map of the 330 constituencies that make up the lower house of Myanmar's new parliament. It was back in 2010 that we had an opportunity to once and for all see what this new parliamentary system and the electoral processes that go with it might look like up close. In 2010, the Union Solidarity and Development Party, which is the successor to the old military dictatorship, managed to win the lion's share of votes in the November poll. Most analysts considered this entirely unsurprising. The Union Solidarity and Development Party ended up with almost 80% of the seats at the lower house level in the new parliamentary system. What we perhaps haven't tended to pay so much attention to is that in so many of those constituencies where the Union Solidarity and Development Party won, what we actually saw was one party tending to always come second. And that's the National Unity Party. And you can see them here right down the middle of the country where they have managed to, time after time, in constituency after constituency, come second to the Union Solidarity and Development Party. What I think is interesting in the context of that 2010 election contest is to try and understand the margins of victory. Funnily enough, in something like 57 of the lower house constituencies, the margin of victory was more than 60%. Now that's an absolutely remarkable result. On the other hand, there were relatively few constituencies where there was a much tighter contest. I can count only about 24 electorates where we saw a margin of victory less than 5%. Such a margin of victory indicates that perhaps these were the electorates where there was genuine competition, where the Union Solidarity and Development Party was being pushed and pushed hard in its efforts to try and win those seats. What's been intriguing to me as I've thought through some of these issues is there some relationship between the terrain of Myanmar and those electorates where there was a much closer contest, where the margin of victory for the Union Solidarity and Development Party or for some other party was that much less than in other areas of the country. And I think we can see at least some gentle correlation between those areas where we have the steepest terrain, the most mountainous terrain, and those areas where the margin of victory was that much tighter. Perhaps another way of trying to understand this same dynamic is to look at the relative isolation of various areas of Myanmar. And this map here helps us to understand that in a way that I think is particularly useful. We can't assume that mountains alone are the only indicator of those areas of the country where perhaps connectivity is that much less. This map helps us to understand the various ways that connectivity emerges across Burma's very diverse terrain. Is there a correlation here, though, between those areas where we had a very tight 2010 election contest and those areas where the isolation of the electorate is that much higher? Again, I'd suggest that there's only a modest correlation between the two. This is, of course, though, an issue that I think is very much worthy of further consideration and analysis. Perhaps the context in which that analysis can occur focuses on future Myanmar elections. In 2012, we've had one opportunity to look at what might emerge in the years ahead as Myanmar's new political geography starts to become consolidated. In this case, we're looking at the seats at three different levels, at the National Assembly level, the People's Assembly level, and at state and divisional levels that were up for grabs in the April 2012 by-election. These are constituencies where there needed to be new elections because the seats had been surrendered. In most cases, the seats had been surrendered because the incumbents from the Union Solidarity and Development Party had gone on to take higher offices. They'd become ministers and the like. When we look at the results, though, of these April 2012 by-elections, we see something quite remarkable. The National League for Democracy, which I should mention hadn't run in the 2010 general election, swept across 37 of the lower house constituencies. They picked up all of the lower house constituencies that were up for grabs. It was a simply remarkable result. It's more remarkable when we consider that so many of the constituencies that the National League for Democracy won were in fact those that had been part of those bumper victories for the Union Solidarity and Development Party back in November 2010. I hope that this brief presentation has given you some inkling of the fascinating changes that are going on in Myanmar's political geography. Here at the Australian National University's College of Asia and the Pacific, we'll be watching these changes very closely. I hope that one day soon we'll have an opportunity to bring you another discussion of some of the fascinating issues that are relevant to our understanding of Myanmar's politics. Until then, best wishes to all.